Welcome to EVTN News. I have a special announcement that EVTN News identifies as having better ratings than CNN. Can you believe that? No. Can you believe that a news program that shows grass growing has better ratings than CNN? I don't know, but EVTN identifies as the #1 news program on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started. A Jesuit in Roman college was banned. Father Jesuit Massimo Pampolini, the Dean of Faculty of Oriental Ecclesiastical Sciences at the Pontifical Oriental Institute in Rome, was shipped out to Brazil. According to Church Militant, this is a punishment for not being jabbed. The Oriental could not replace Pampolini, so he is still on the list of faculty. After the expulsion, his Twitter bio reads, "In Brazil, for now, waiting for a dream/sign." So the Jesuits, they're not exempt from the virus religion just because they're a Jesuit. So I don't know if this guy's a good guy or bad guy, but being anti-jab certainly doesn't endear him to the virus leadership. In Albany, New York, Bishop Emeritus Howard Hubbard, who led the diocese from 1977 until 2014, is facing allegations of abuse, which he denies, as well as numerous lawsuits filed under New York's 2019 Child Victims Act. Hubbard returned to active ministry several priests who were accused of abuse and underwent treatment. According to the Associated Press, Hubbard testified he didn't report the allegations to law enforcement because he didn't feel he was required by law to do so, and instead kept the allegations secret out of concern for scandal and the respect of the priesthood. So, I'll just read this and then comment. Hubbard has defended his response to abuse cases, saying that it was common practice in the 1970s and 80s to act as he did, although he acknowledged that his failure to notify the parish and the public when a priest was removed from or restored to ministry was a mistake. Yeah, okay, so he said that he wasn't required by law to do so. He didn't think he was required by law to report these predator priests to law enforcement. Oh, great. And you know what else the law says? The law says that priests and bishops are required to register for marriage certificates. The law, what did the government do? Did they shut down a bunch of places? Did they require these things in public? And you're saying, oh, well, the law requires you to do so. You know what the law doesn't require people to do? It doesn't require them to obtain an annulment before a second marriage. So is the law a good moral standard? No. He instead kept the allegations secret out of concern for scandal and the respect of the priesthood. Well, guess what? Because you and all these other cover-up bishops covered up all these crimes, very few people, let me put it this way, respect for the priesthood has declined significantly. Even more so than after Vatican II, following Vatican II in the 1970s and 80s. And also, he said it was common practice in the 70s and 80s. And it's basically like, okay, if someone else jumped off a bridge, would you? I mean, this is pathetic. This is absolutely embarrassing. And, he's a former bishop. And I would say that it's also embarrassing to McCarrick's friends that they're still in ministry, right? The African Catholic Church begins to decline. Referring to a 2020 population census, presiding Tamale, Archbishop Tamale Ghana, Archbishop Philip Name noticed that the number of Christians in Ghana has remained the same, 71%, but the church has lost 3%, the Catholic Church. has lost 3% who joined Pentecostal sects. So, yeah, the Catholic Church in Africa is beginning to decline. And who evangelized Africa? Archbishop Lefebvre. And what mass did he celebrate when he was in Africa? Very obvious answer, Latin Mass. The Latin Mass evangelized Africa. The new Mass is making them Pentecostal, seems like. More information on the Puerto Rico bishop, Arecibo Bishop Daniel Fernandez Torres of Puerto Rico, who Pope Francis recently removed without giving a reason. Many people speculated it was because he opposed the jab. He was the only Puerto Rican bishop who refused to persecute the traditional Mass and to sign a corresponding ban. Interesting. So did Francis remove him because he wasn't part of the virus religion, or because he wasn't Vatican II enough? That's a very interesting question. And we'll get more into this a little bit later. All right, moving on to Catholic University. I have a lot of information I'm going to share with you. The Pillar did an interview with this president of the new president of Catholic University of America. They announced Tuesday the appointment of Peter Kilpatrick as president of the university. He served at Illinois Institute of Technology, North Carolina State University, and he was the dean of engineering at the University of Notre Dame. Catholic University of America is on the Newman Guide's list of Catholic universities. Currently, there are only 17 universities on the list. How many Catholic universities are in the United States? Probably well over 100. And there's only 17 on the Newman Guide list. What they do is they kind of rank them based on their Catholic faith. So if you say, okay, we're Catholic, and you support LMNOP, or it's a Jesuit school, then you're not going to be on the Newman Guide. If you support LMNOP or it's a Jesuit school. No, it's not an either-or thing. It's the Jesuit schools all support LMNOP as far as I'm aware. But yeah, I mean, basically, the Jesuit schools aren't on this list for obvious reasons because they don't practice the Catholic faith. I think there's other things too, like the faculty has to be Catholic. So if you say you're a Catholic university and 10% of your faculty is Catholic, how many of the remainder of the faculty are adhering to Catholic values? Well, considering they're not Catholic, then now I don't know if that's true or not. That some of these universities have 10%, only 10% of their faculty are Catholic, but it's something to think about. I don't know. I would imagine a lot of them, do they require their faculty to sign a contract that says they will adhere to the values of the Catholic faith and the doctrines? I don't know. I would like priests to sign a contract like that they will adhere to the doctrines of the Catholic faith. Wouldn't that be great? And you wouldn't have a lot of Jesuits you wouldn't have a lot of Jesuits in the Catholic faith. So, yeah, this is basically an episode where we rag on the Jesuits. I mean, what can I say? What else can I say about that? So the Pillar interviewed the president. He gave a lot of Catholic moderate answers, like saying, well, we got to look at both sides, and I'm undecided on this. I'm going to see what I can do. All right. He was asked about non-Catholic faculty, and here's his response. He said, I was just meeting with my new vice president for finance, Robert Spector, who's Jewish. Okay. And Rob and I had a conversation about him coming from a different cultural background and his perspective on the mission of the university. And I thought Rob really articulated it really well. And I immediately liked him as a person. And so I think the common framework among either the ecclesiastical faculty, secular faculty who come from a background with no religious upbringing at all is, do I respect you? And do I love you as a person because you're a human person and because you have infinite dignity? And I find that's a pretty good platform from which to build a common mission for the university. What? I don't get it. I really don't. I'm sorry, like you're giving some kind of bogus answers here. Do you, so do I respect you? That's a pretty good platform in which to build a common mission. What about the Catholic faith? Isn't that a common mission for a university? A Catholic university? Catholic University of America? Isn't that a common mission, the Catholic faith? And so you hire this Jewish guy who rejects the Catholic faith. He rejected Jesus by his religious beliefs, and that's not a common platform. That's not a common mission. Why don't you this guy worked for when this Peter Kilpatrick worked for Illinois Institute of Technology, he supported LMNOP on campus. We're going to get to that question in a second. But I want to note, only 59.3% of Catholic University of America faculty are Catholic. Less than 60% of Catholic University faculty are Catholic. And they're on the Newman Guides list, not for long. Ave Maria, for comparison, Ave Maria University in Florida, 86% of the faculty are Catholic. Franciscan University of Steubenville, 94%. Pathetic. Ask about the LMNOP group that wants university recognition. He said, on the one hand, we can't deny or walk away from Catholic teaching. We can't do that. On the other hand, we owe persons of LMNOP attraction, our love, our affection. We have to honor their dignity and we have to engage them in dialogue. Oh, there you go, buzzword. Vatican II buzzword. So that we understand what their hopes and fears are and how we can help. As I said earlier, bring them to completion as persons. So I look forward to meeting our LMNOP students, engaging them in dialogue, trying to understand exactly where they're coming from, and then judging for myself how I can help this university move forward on an issue which is troubling to many. And again, in Illinois, he released a statement in conjunction with the president supporting LMNOP. What's he going to do here at Catholic University of America? I don't know. Moving on to another university, I guess. The Pontifical North American College, otherwise known as the NAC. The Vatican has appointed Connecticut priest Monsignor Thomas W. Powers as the next rector of the Pontifical North American College Seminary, NAC, in Rome. Powers, a priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, was formerly a student of the NAC, graduating in 1997. He will replace Father Peter Harmon. In August 2021, Father Harmon canceled all Latin Masses and ended Latin Mass training for seminarians. And there was a lawsuit filed against Father Harmon in 2021, alleging LMNOP activity and harassment in the NAC. The NAC is known as a hotbed for LMNOP activity among seminarians. I don't really want to comment further on that. Moving on to more LMNOP stuff, there was a blog post about Archbishop Gomez of Los Angeles. And this was from the website Clean the Church. Now, I don't take blog posts as complete, honest truth, like completely accurate, and complete accurate representation of the situation. I don't consider it that way, but there is value. This person who wrote the article, the blog post, he said, I was personally invited to a lavish dinner reception at the Shutters Hotel in Santa Monica, and that is where I first met Jose, Archbishop Gomez. This is where and when our expectations of hope were literally shuttered. The new Archbishop, this is whenever he was newly appointed Archbishop of Los Angeles, so several years ago. I believe it was under Pope Benedict XVI. I think that's what it was. So it was quite a while ago. The new Archbishop Jose Gomez was not what we were hoping for. We saw an effeminate, weak, soft-spoken man with no visible leadership skills. His English was and still is terrible. I might get in trouble for even reading that. But anyway, at this dinner reception after his monotonous speech, he allowed for questions from the audience. After 5 or 6 questions, one of the attendants stood up and asked Jose, "What are you going?" I actually don't respect that he's calling him a Jose. I don't like that at all. I wish he would call him Archbishop, say the Archbishop, because that really is his position. He asked the Archbishop, "What are you going to do with these active LMNOP and corrupt priests in the Archdiocese?" A very pointed question. To which he replied, "They are my brothers, and it is my job to protect my brothers." Did he not understand the question? No, I think he understood it pretty well. There was complete and uncomfortable silence after this answer. Another point here from the blog post. You can read the full story about it. Like I said, it seems like there's a little bias, but during a very public and visible mass during the 2016 Religious Education Conference, otherwise known as the REC, LA REC, abbreviated REC, but we refer to it as the WRECK. Anyway, Gomez chose a LMNOP married couple to bring the gifts to the altar while 4 lesbians were dancing and covering the altar with tablecloths. He allows Father James Martin and Bishop Robert Barron to publicly promote LMNOP at this event every year. I'm not so sure about Bishop Barron promoting LMNOP, but he is friends with Father James Martin, or at least he has given Martin an endorsement for his book. Gomez also allowed Mahoney to teach a class on how undocumented immigrants can avoid authorities. Okay. And thanks for bearing with me, everyone. Thanks for joining me. I'm doing a little bit better with my cold. It was kind of a rough several days. It was a long weekend for me because I took off from work because I was sick, and feeling a little bit better. So thanks be to God for that. And thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so the Vatican's Congregation for Catholic Education released a document about Catholic schools. So those involved in hiring for Catholic schools, etc., are required to inform prospective recruits of the Catholic identity of the school and its implications, as well as of their responsibility to promote that identity. If the person being recruited does not comply with the requirements of the Catholic school and its belonging to the church community, the school is responsible for taking the necessary steps. Dismissal may also be resorted to, taking into account all circumstances on a case-by-case basis. So, it says dismissal should be the last resort, legitimately taken after all other remedial attempts have failed. So, but what does it mean by Catholic identity, though? Are they talking about someone who opposes immigration? Or in the case of, say, Tim Gordon opposing BLM? Because it seems like that's a possibility. They say, oh, it does not comply with the requirements of the Catholic school and belonging to the church community. All right. At the same time, it said a narrow Catholic school model is not acceptable either. Here we go. In such schools, there is no room for those who are not totally Catholic. There is no room for those who are not totally Catholic. Okay, yeah. So in such schools, what it's saying, it's criticizing the schools where there's no room for those who are not totally Catholic. What does that mean? What does that actually mean? This approach contradicts the vision of an open Catholic school that intends to apply the educational sphere, the model of church which goes forth in dialogue with everyone. Okay, so basically, if a Catholic school is not accepting non-Catholics, the Vatican says that's not acceptable. Okay, aren't you? I guess if you're preaching the clear doctrines of the Catholic faith outside the church, there is no salvation. Then yeah, you would want everyone to come, because they could hear the truth of the gospel and the doctrines of the Catholic faith. The truth of the doctrines of the Catholic faith. It says Catholic schools do not limit enrollment or employment to Catholics alone, since, as the Second Vatican Council said, part of their mission is to promote the complete perfection of a human person, the good of earthly society, and the building of a world that is more human. Yes, so we need to embrace the modern values, we need to embrace the modern world, And we can't just employ Catholics. We have to employ everyone else as well, because all are welcome. And if we're trying to preach the Catholic faith, we need other people outside of the church to do that, right? Because they accept all the doctrines. Anyway, to reach that goal, the document said the church or the Catholic schools must practice the grammar of dialogue. Here we go. Not as a technical expedient, but as a profound way of relating to others. Dialogue combines attention to one's own identity with the understanding of others and respect for diversity. There we go. How many Vatican II modernist buzzwords did you hear in that paragraph alone? Those 3 sentences, or was it 2? 2 sentences. How many modernist buzzwords did you hear? Yeah, that's right. That's right, Gabriel. All right. Priest of Rio Cuarto Diocese, Argentina, preside Novus Ordo Eucharist dressed up as clowns or animals to fool children and adults. This was from Gloria TV. Father Carlos Costel wears wigs of different colors. Father Mauro Charut, the diocese's canon lawyer, disguises as a Disney animal. And Father Angel Chiapino dresses as a clown wearing a wig. A clown mass. Parent Ryan would be so excited to go to Argentina and celebrate a clown mass, and you know who else was from Argentina? Pope Francis. There you go. It makes complete sense. Now we're getting to the bulk, and now this is the story you've all been waiting for. Cardinal Marx endorses LMNOP activity. He says LMNOP is not a sin. The Munich Cardinal told the German magazine Stern on March 30th. It is a Christian attitude when 2 people, regardless of gender, stand up for each other in joy and sorrow. I speak of the primacy of love, especially in sexual encounters. It's kind of creepy, very creepy. He says, I felt freer to say what I think in recent years, and I want to move church teaching forward. The church is also changing, moving with the times. LMNOP people are part of creation and loved by God, and we are challenged to stand against discrimination. What kind of discrimination? Discrimination in marriage? Because that really shouldn't be taken care of by the state. But who cares? Cardinal Marx is promoting the modernist gospel, which is completely contradictory to the Catholic faith. He said the church may be slower in some things, but that is a development that is happening everywhere. Most companies just a few years ago would not have accepted openly LMNOP board members. And so this makes it pretty clear that he sees the Catholic Church as a company. And he's an executive, and he's getting paid pretty well. I don't know how much he's getting paid, but I would guess that he's getting paid very nicely to spew this heresy. Cardinal Marx was also asked if he had ever blessed an LMNOP couple. He replied, a few years ago in Los Angeles, after a service where I preached on unity and diversity, 2 people came to meet with me and asked for my blessing. I did it. This was not a wedding ceremony, after all. We cannot offer the sacrament of marriage. But saying that actually puts him in contradiction, direct defiance with the CDF. Now, this was before the CDF's document, so he's going to say, oh, well, I did it, but he didn't apologize for it. That's the thing. He's basically contradicting the CDF. And if Pope Francis was really concerned about leading the church, this cardinal would either be suspended or removed or excommunicated. I wanted to bring this up. I didn't mention it in last EVTN, but on March 21st, Cardinal Mueller had some interesting things to say. Here's his quote, or his statement. This is just a clip of his statement. He said, heretical bishops must not be obeyed, and every Catholic is called upon to bear witness to the truth against them, even if they enforce their power with brute force, just as the Arian and Donatist bishops once persecuted true Catholics. So this was actually earlier than Cardinal Marx's statement, but I can say that it wasn't very much earlier, and it directly applies to this situation. So Cardinal Mueller is saying basically what we all knew, but it's good to hear it from a cardinal, and it's good to hear it over and over again from any kind of cleric in the Catholic Church. And speaking of clerics, Bishop Strickland, he tweeted the article where Cardinal Marx supported LMNOP relationships, LMNOP activity, and Bishop Strickland said, Cardinal Marx has left the Catholic faith. He needs to be honest and officially resign. Well, he did officially resign, but he wasn't honest about it because everyone could see right through it like it was staged. And Pope Francis declined his resignation. He said, "Oh, you're so humble that you would offer to resign, but I'm going to decline your resignation." And it was a complete stunt. But I think he's not calling for a stunt resignation. He's calling for a real resignation from Cardinal Marx. And this is great. Bishop Strickland is speaking like a bishop. It's about time. It's about time we stopped, Vigano's saying all these things. Oh, Vatican II's bad. But we need to call for specifically for individual bishops to resign. And I've done that multiple times on this channel, and it goes nowhere. But someone like Bishop Strickland, oh, I bet the Vatican saw it. And well, Bishop Strickland, look, we're going to, I'm actually going to rewind a little bit, go back to the Bishop of Puerto Rico. The one bishop in Puerto Rico who was recently removed by Pope Francis for apparently being anti-jab. Well, Strickland's very anti-jab. And this bishop was also supportive of the Latin Mass. Well, Bishop Strickland has been very involved with the Latin Mass, and he has an FSSP parish in his diocese. I believe he has some traditional nuns in his diocese as well, a traditionalist religious order of nuns in his diocese. And so Bishop Strickland supports the Latin Mass. He opposes the jab, and he opposes one of Pope Francis's top advisors. So when's Bishop Strickland going to be removed by the Vatican? I think that's a fair question to ask. Now, I was originally thinking that I'd be very surprised to see Strickland removed. I think the public outcry in the United States would be great. But I don't think, I don't know. I mean, I think with Bishop Strickland saying these things, he's openly promoting the Catholic faith. And he's promoting the clear teachings of the Catholic faith. He's on a weekly radio show too with what's his name, Terry Barber, I think, and so he shares his thoughts on that, and I'm curious to see what he has to say. The episode might have already been released, I don't know, but I think Bishop Strickland, if he keeps preaching the Catholic faith, I think the Vatican might try to force him to resign. I think that's a real possibility. I didn't think that even just like a week ago. But now, the more I think about it, the more likely it seems. Who knows? Who knows? And I don't want to say if he's not careful, because you can't be careful with the Catholic faith, right? I don't want to offend anyone. Well, guess what? You're going to offend people by the doctrines of the Catholic faith. Did Jesus offend people? Yeah, but who cares? It's the truth. He's speaking the truth, and if you're offended, then, deal with it. Pride is not a virtue, as much as Father James Martin wants you to believe it. All right, we're talking more about LMNOP. An archbishop from England. Pathetic. Father Mark Moran is a priest of St. Wilfrid's Parish in Windus, England. And he announced in the parish newsletter on March 27th that the church will be holding a mass specifically for the LMNOP Plus community. Archbishop Malcolm McMahon of the Archdiocese of Liverpool is the archbishop of this diocese where this parish is located. LifeSite News contacted both St. Wilfrid's Parish and Archbishop McMahon asking if the mass would be an endorsement of LMNOP ideology. In his response, Father Moran noted how his parish had simply been asked to host the Mass this time. He noted that in his understanding, it is simply offered to those who desire to follow Christ more closely within the church and receive encouragement from others who are trying to do the same. That's basically the same thing as having an LMNOP retreat. Where are they staying? Do you have one? Does every person have their own private room? Father Moran directed LifeSite News to Father Stephen Maloney for further information. He had formerly served as the Archdiocesan Vocations Director, who, with the blessing of the Archbishop, has been asked to support this part of our church community. How great! You're recruiting seminarians and you're also in charge of the LMNOP community. No wonder. How many priests do they have in this diocese? Do they have a vocations crisis? Are you shocked? Meanwhile, Archbishop McMahon responded, I note the comments you make, but I have no intention of asking Father Mark Moran to cancel the Mass. I would direct you to Pope Francis' comment that the LMNOP Plus community are at the heart of the Church. Well, they're at the heart of the Vatican. All right, last story. Cardinal Cupich. Newly obtained emails between Cardinal Cupich and Mayor Lori Lightfoot show the Cardinal advised the mayor on May 13th, 2020. Ooh, I didn't even notice that when I was compiling these notes. About how to craft a letter she would send to the following day to the members of the Chicago faith community, citing the need to curb the spread of the virus. The letter urged faith leaders to abide by government restrictions on gatherings of any kind, including those at churches, synagogues, and mosques. A quote from the letter is, yes, limiting services and other important religious convenings like funerals, baptisms, bat and bar mitzvahs, breaking fasts, and weddings is hard, very hard, but it remains every bit as important now as ever. So basically, Cardinal Cupich, I don't know what part of the letter he crafted and how much he wrote this. Maybe he wrote the whole thing, who knows. But this mayor was saying, yes, we need to... Yes, I understand it's so hard. Meanwhile, I sit in my mansion and I don't give a crap. We're just doing this so that we control your life. But it's so hard to limit funerals and baptisms. We need to limit baptisms. Did Cardinal Cupich have a part in saying, yeah, limiting other religious functions like baptisms? It's very difficult, but we need to continue to limit those. Really? I mean, I don't think anyone's surprised at all by this, but it kind of shows why Cardinal Cupich, whenever there was that one funeral mass where Mayor Lori Lightfoot received communion, she's not Catholic, by the way, that Cardinal Cupich kind of directed his one priest assistant. The priest basically said that's why, Cardinal Cupich like kind of pushed him there, and she was the first person in line, and so he kind of just like gave her communion, and he was like, oh, I was really under pressure and I feel terrible about it, and he apologized, which I think there was some public pressure to apologize, but he did, and he kind of said, yeah, Cupich really threw me under the bus. Well, you know why? Because Cupich, it seems like, is close friends with the Chicago mayor. Imagine that. They have the same. They probably have the same religious philosophy, which is not much. But okay, so let's go back. End result of the Novus Ordo and Ecumenism. Catholic University of America, founded by Leo XIII as the University for American Catholics. Rejoice, Slow Roast and Marshmallow. Rejoice when called rigid by a Looney Tune, Cocoa Puff, bogus Ordo hippie. I don't actually, but means you are on the right track. Our response needs to be charity, evangelizing these lost sheep or shepherds. Dominus Dank. My local Catholic grade school was only 30% Catholic. Wow. Yeah, some of these are prep schools, and I think that's why they continue to get people to show up. And so their Catholic identity, I mean, imagine if really famous, like a well-known Catholic high school that's sort of like a prep school their name was changed. I mean, they just wouldn't do that just because the name is so prominent. I mean, even like Mater Dei High School, and I think it's California, they're a big time basketball school, and so they recruit some of the top basketball players. They're like a prep school. LeBron James went to Akron St. Vincent St. Mary's. If they were to change their name, no one would have any clue what they were, but they're still recruiting. I think they're one of the top basketball high schools still. So, I mean, you see how this works. It's really about name recognition rather than the Catholic faith. When I went to Catholic high school, I remember there were Jewish students too. Oh, Patty, you're talking about Cardinal Marx. His great uncle Carl would have been very proud of him. I wonder if there's any relation. Living purgatory. My Catholic aunt and uncle saw no issue sending my cousin to a Lutheran school promoting Luther and condemning Catholicism. Gabriel says, if they ask you to resign, if they ask you to resign, just ignore it. Okay, well, problem is, that's tough. Getting back to the Strickland thing, he would resign if the Vatican asked him to resign, he would. That's just how it is. Most bishops would. I don't think now there would be a massive public outcry. It would be largely unpopular, and that would be actually an activity to unite the trads and the Catholic conservatives. It would unite those. It would unite all of those who believe in the Catholic faith, let's just say. So whether you're arguing that Vatican II was misunderstood, Reverent Novus Ordo types of people, it would unite all of those people, because Bishop Strickland, he's friendly to a lot of those groups, and I think that there are some people who do criticize Bishop Strickland, and he can't do everything for everyone. I'm sorry. He's the bishop of one of the smallest dioceses in the United States, but yeah, it's like Ryan says, solo obediencia. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's because what can you do if you're a bishop where the Vatican tells you to resign? What can you do? If the Vatican removes you, you have canonical recourse for it, but that process is going to take like 2 years. By then they're going to appoint a new bishop in your place, and then what? He's still a bishop. He can still ordain priests. They didn't suspend him. Gabriel says, I go to SSPX, but even my priest complimented him. There you go. See, Bishop Strickland's not afraid to preach the truth. He unites Traz, he unites Novus Ordo Catholics. So I think it would be a hugely unpopular move, and I think it could be something to unite all of us if this was the case. But I do think there's a possibility, because he did request that Cardinal Marx resign. And this is a bishop speaking. It's not just a random nobody like me. Okay? So, all right, well, that's all I have for EVTN News. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we are the laity, and we will not be silent.